For those who are curious into the documentation and journey of a strength and conditioning coach and now yoga teacher then this is probably the video channel page for you. To give background, what is Strength of Saad? Strength of Saad, I named it after my grandfather. My grandfather epitomizes to me strength. He's someone that I look up to in a lot of ways, and in coming up with a name for this brand that I wanted to use to document my journey through as a strength and conditioning coach. I've been for over 2 years, as a student, as a yoga practitioner, and now yoga teacher. I'm thinking, what name could I come up with? I've honestly been thinking about it for probably 2 years, just trying to, I'm gonna wait till it comes to me, and it finally came to me, and I thought, that's it, that's perfect. Every other name I had in my mind just vanished, because it's like, what could be more important than showing respect to my grandfather? To give a slight background, if you're not interested in this, then you can skip ahead, but to give slight background, my grandparents were immigrants from Egypt. They came here in their adulthood, their 30s, I believe, or late 20s, when they had my mother, and it's just hearing their story, like, it's so far from what I've experienced, their life, him growing up as a tailor, his family's all jewelers, and him becoming such a revered, respected tailor, just being so respected in his craft in this city, realizing that it might sound a bit far-fetched to some people, but realizing that, wow, he was really one of the most respected and admired tailors in Henry Bucks, in his field. And that's really, when I found that out after talking to some people who worked with him and hearing stories from my family, I'm like, wow, my admiration just grew for him. And then recently, in the last couple of years, well, let me say 4 or 5 years, he's been suffering from dementia, and it's been quite challenging for my family and him, and my now deceased grandmother. It was quite challenging for her as well. But before he got that, I always looked at him as a man of such great physical strength. I saw my grandmother as someone with such good emotional, spiritual, and mental strength, where my grandfather, his strength was in his physical ability and his mental fortitude, his resilience. And as an immigrant, those qualities are just, they're just made. How do I say? Those qualities are pushed out of you. And so in the stories he's told me, and in the conversations I've had with him, every time you just grow respect. It's hard for me to even talk about. I stumble across my words, because like, what words can I really say to honor his legacy? And he's still alive to this day. Unfortunately, he's in a nursing home, but he will have no idea that I'm doing this. I could explain it to him. I could do my best to explain it to him, even though it's a minor language barrier. I could get my mum to explain it to him in Arabic, but he'd just forget. I could come back the next day and he'd forget, which is a sad reality, but a reality regardless. So this is me trying to selfishly build a brand, build a community of people, document my life, and at the same time try to build his own legacy, because he never would have got the opportunity to. Never used the internet, never wanted to, probably didn't even know what it was, never used a mobile. He wouldn't have this opportunity, and so I'm going to do it for him. I'm going to make his name as infamous as I can, through my being, through my energy, through my life, through this and everything I do. And really, it's not just him. It's the whole family. It's not just him. It's my grandmother. It's my mother. It's my father. It's the family, right? It's everything around him and attached to him. Without him, without a grandmother, without them, I'm nothing. We're nothing. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants. And so this is me trying to document that legacy and honor that legacy and document my own journey to cement and create my own legacy in parallel. And so that's a bit of a background of like how it came about. I could speak on it more, but I'll digress and explain what this is if you're curious. This is me as a strength and conditioning coach. I sometimes even hesitate to call myself that because I think you really need to earn that. But for simplicity's sake, I just want to call it that because a lot of people understand the term strength and conditioning coach or strength coach. Unfortunately, Australia is still growing and the industry is far behind America. And this comes to yoga. So after playing basketball, dedicating my life to that for 5 years, I found yoga somewhere in the midst of that to help me reduce pain. I had back pain and overuse injuries, minor things, but significant enough to bother me. And I get paranoid about that battery. I found yoga amongst that. I got recommended it and I tried it. Around 16, 17 years of age, I tried yoga and Pilates in conjunction with each other. And first, the physical benefits just came to me. I'm like, wow, I feel good. I feel better. I'm getting stronger. I'm fixing instabilities in my body. Musculoskeletal issues are being reduced. Great. And then sometime after, a year later, after doing consistent yoga, 2 years later, I noticed mental, spiritual, emotional benefits. I started figuring out more about myself. Honestly, I feel like the practice of yoga, screw the word, ignore the word. It's really, to me, just mindful movement or meditation and movement or deliberate movement that's purposeful. You know, any one of those phrases, that's what it is to me. And so I started seeing those benefits, and I really started becoming, honestly, in all the other things I was doing to make myself a better person, that was helping me in parallel. And it really taught me to be more patient. It taught me a lot of self-awareness about my own body, which is great, because that's something I think a lot of people lack. They lack body self-awareness, not just inner self-awareness, but their own body, how to move in space. And so it taught me a lot about that. And about when I was 18, approximately, I decided, man, I'd love to be a yoga teacher. How many male yoga teachers out there? Well, in a female-dominated industry that this is, there's not many. I'm looking at stats and stuff. Like we're talking about like, I can't remember the exact stats. 5-10% of people, even males who even do yoga, practice it, let alone teachers. I might see one yoga teacher at a studio if we're lucky, right? Let alone someone who's, and I'm gonna say my age, I don't care, 22 or in their 20s, right? So I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of a chip on my shoulder, but a benefit at the same time. I'm starting young. I'm the demographic that isn't common, male. Even though most people don't know, non-yoga teachers don't know, yoga used to be a male-dominated practice. Only males were allowed to do it. It was a one-on-one practice. When I found that out through my training, I'm like, wow, that's how so much has changed. And so to fast forward, in my head, I'm like implanted the seed. I want to be a yoga teacher one day. I'd love to teach athletes. I'd love to speak to the athlete, to the male, to different energy, because females and males communicate generally differently, and I feel like I can bring a different type of energy as an ex-athlete, someone who's dedicated their life, someone who's played sport at a relatively high level. To give context, playing in a small college in Arizona, and so having that context, I feel like I can communicate to the athlete demographic a little better, especially now that I'm coaching wider array of athletes at Woodford Sports Science Consulting in Melbourne. I'm getting the opportunity to coach more and more and more, which is great. And so one of the missions is to help communicate that to males and athletes and people who have a stigmatized yoga and a stereotyped yoga. It really bothers me. I hesitated there. I was like, does it bother me? I'm like, yeah, it kind of does. And I'm like, should I be bothered? Probably not, but like, yeah, it does. Because where do you even start? Where do you even start? Like, whether people think it's just stretching, whether people think it's girly, whether people don't think it's a challenge. I could challenge them right there on that one. so many different stigmas and stereotypes that I want to help eliminate through this Strength of Saad. So while this video is a little lengthy, which I'm conscious of right now, I'm just going to keep going because, you know, I feel like context is important, and I can look back on this in 5-10 years time and see where I fulfilled the vision, how accurately I fulfilled the vision. So this is as much for me as it is for whoever's watching this. Yeah, simple as that. So now to the yoga teacher training. How did I come about that? Planted the seed when I was 18, and then some years later, after coming back from America, after you know, doing a couple of diplomas, after starting as I was starting my exercise science degree, I decided to save up the money and make the investment in yoga teacher training at Ihana Yoga in St Kilda, which I would highly recommend if you are a Melbourne-based teacher or a want-to-be teacher. I wholeheartedly believe, not paying me to say this at all, in fact I paid them, so I wholeheartedly believe they're one of the best teacher trainings in the state, if not the country. What Yenny's doing over there and the teachers are doing over there is incredible, and probably the most holistic teacher training. I feel like I'm such a well-rounded individual now in that realm. I still don't know so much. There's so much experience I have to learn, but they encapsulated such a wide variety of ideas and philosophies and applications of different themes. Like we talk about anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, the philosophy, the meditation. Like there's always different units, all these different every couple of weeks, different themes. So I feel like I'm such a well-rounded teacher now. Well, I'm in the making, a well-rounded teacher in the making. And so to back up before that, yeah, I made that investment, and now I started that nearly a year ago, and when I was 21, and now I'm 22, and I finished, and I've actually finished yesterday. So I'm like, all right, I put it out to the world. I announced it to the world. I put it out on my Facebook and Instagram, which is kind of a bit nerve-wracking in some small way, because it's like, you know, it means a lot to me. It really means a lot to me. You know, you want to feel like you're understood and heard, and you part of you wants to be supported, right? Yeah, you know, you want people to fuck with you. You want people to like you. I want to be liked. You know, I used to fight against that, like, oh, I don't care if people like me. I don't care, but at the same time, I care. I want to do well at this. I want to be exceptional at this. And so, yeah, off the energy of the positivity that I'm getting from the people who have been supporting me through what I've put out there to the world now, and the announcement to the public, because I'm pretty quiet with these things. I don't really announce them until I've done them, because I think anything can happen. But now I've announced it, and off that positivity, that energy from other people, I'm like using this, like it's past 11 p.m. I still got this energy in me that I just want to make something and just start documenting immediately. And so here we are, the beginning of the journey. I've really talked about yoga especially, and I will reference a lot of the strength and conditioning stuff in future videos as well. So it'll be an amalgamation of those things. It'll be an amalgamation of strength and conditioning and my coaching experience and things I'm learning, things I've learned, and in parallel it'll be the yoga. I don't see anybody doing that. I don't see anybody doing strength and conditioning and yoga in combination. It's a white space, and let alone males, let alone 22-year-old males, let alone 22-year-old males living in Melbourne. I don't see that. I don't see any facility that caters to strength and conditioning and yoga. Why? Why don't we have that? Why doesn't that exist? That's holistic. You want to build a well-rounded, optimal human being or athlete or performer or whatever you're doing. You know, those are important cogs in the wheel. We can't just focus on one. And I feel both modalities really hit so many different positive aspects to building a well-rounded human being or athlete. And yeah, so that's always been the vision for years, to combine those two. And now we're here, and now it's the beginning of it. So that's what this Strength of Saad is about, because, you know, that's who it's for. That's what it's about. And one last thing I want to touch on is the state of this yoga industry. Christian Woodford, someone I've worked very closely with over the last year plus, and I work for his company Woodford's as a coach. I've worked side by side with him. I see him almost every day. I talk to him almost every day. He's become quite a influential figure in my life, and his mission is to raise the standard of the fitness industry, the strength and conditioning industry, raise the standard of in Australia so we can catch up to America, right? Because we are far behind them. In many ways, a lot of people don't even know what an S&C coach is. That's a problem, and I'm gonna help him do that. But at the same time, the yoga industry has heaps of flaws. I just type in the yoga hashtag, right? And I just scroll. Right? I just scroll. And this is not just from what I'm seeing now. This is from years of conversations and experience and seeing things like this already. And there's a couple things that we're not doing correctly, or we're not doing the best we can. We got a lot of room to grow. And I'm trying to help raise the standard of this yoga industry, because it is becoming too much about what you look like rather than who you are and what you have to offer and what value you have to offer. There's not a lot of substance. There's not a lot of science behind yoga. And there's hundreds to thousands of studies out there talking about the benefits of meditation and yoga as such. But there's not many people talking about that. There's not many people with formal education, exercise science degrees, or screw the exercise science degree I'm doing, just university qualifications in the health and science field, right? There's very few yoga practitioners who are actually formally educated, right? Yet they're positioning themselves as people who are very educated and often can be falsely educating people with misinformation, whether it's accidental, which is understandable because that happens, or whether it's with malice and on purpose and with malevolence, right? And so a guy like Simon Borgolivia, I don't know a lot about him, but a lot of people have a lot of respect for him in the yoga industry. He used to became as a physio first, turned into a yoga practitioner, right? So that's great. He built an understanding of the human body first, as like I did, but he did it up until his 30s or something, or late 20s, whatever he did, and then he became a yoga teacher. And that's great. He's a foundational understanding of how the human body works. There is not, to me, I'm going to rephrase that, to me, what I can see, there is not enough yoga practitioners, yogis, yoga teachers, whatever you want to call them, who have a thorough understanding of how the human body works in the practical setting of physical activity. Yoga is a form of physical activity. You're applying stress to the body to cause an adaptation, whether that be mindfulness, whether that be strength, mobility, flexibility, pliability, whatever you want to call them, whichever adaptation you want. We're trying to elicit a positive response in the body, right? A lot of people don't have that understanding. And that's fine, we can educate them. They can be educated. We can be educated. I have a long way to go as well, right? But, so with that lack of education not at the forefront, it then suddenly becomes about, oh, how flexible can I be? How sexy can I make this pose look? You know, how long can I hold this headstand for? How deep can I get into this position, this pose, right? How good can I make my wheel look, you know? And that's why I titled the first video I did of myself practicing yoga, The Perfection of Imperfection, right? My practice was far from perfect. The alignment was off sometimes. I fell over sometimes on the beach. And I'm saying that's the perfection. That's why it's perfect. Because it's not perfect. Because there's imperfections in it. And there's so many women, like they're beautiful women too. Like they're trying to position themselves as young, beautiful, attractive women who are doing these really sexy, seductive poses. Because that's what's sexy. That's what's fancy. That's what's nice. That's what's alluring, right? And for me, well, that's just, you're not gonna get that. Like, I'm not gonna give you the sexy pose, right? I ain't got it, all right? I ain't got it, right? So I'm going to try and give you substance along with my best physical capabilities. And, you know, I hope we can do it. I hope I can have some small influence. Really, I want to have a huge influence between me and you, or me and myself. I really want to have a huge influence, but we got to start small and build. Starting from ground zero here. So, you know, I don't expect many people to be even watching this right now. But at the same time, right, myself, it's for myself. You know, it's just so I can look back on this in a couple years and we can say, you know, this is what happened, this is what he did, this is what we did. And yeah, I want to raise the standard of this yoga industry in conjunction with the strength and conditioning industry in this country. You know, this will be a long process. If you're still curious to see that journey, then you should follow this, the Facebook, the YouTube, the Instagram. Stay tuned. This is just the beginning. And if you want to help support it, then it means so much to me if you could share this with somebody that you feel like could take value from it. Because the reality is there's very few brands out there that I think, that I've ever seen that are attempting to do this. So this long video is finally over. Strength of Saad. Thank you so much if you're still watching this somehow. I'm Alexander Sandalis. I never even introduced myself. My name is Alexander Sandalis. Thank you.